Have you ever wished you could control the grunge you put to a junk journal project, like for example a journal cover or a tag or a journaling card or any other kind of ephemera or decorative element for your journal? If yes, then this video is for you. Today I'm going to show you how I create such an effect. I'm going to show you exactly which mediums I use to make something like this. And I'm going to walk you through my process step by step. So be prepared for a very, very detailed tutorial about controllable grunge. Hi there, this is Luise Heinzel. Thanks for joining me today. Perhaps you know this journal from some of my previous videos. I've already shown you a flip through of this. If you have missed the videos about this, you can find the links down below in the description box. And there have been a lot of questions about how I made this grungy effect here on the spine of this journal. So I thought I show you how I have done this, and especially how I controlled where this grunge goes. We are going to make some mini cards today, so not a junk journal spine, but you can do this effect on any project, on any ephemera, on any kind of journal cover or whatever you can imagine. So just think, what do I want to do, and then do it on that project, because it really doesn't matter where you put it on. You can use that on different surfaces as well. Here I have some fabric below. So as you can see, it's possible on fabric as well. What you can see here through this effect, also here where it's the like naked fabric, is some rusted fabric that I got from my friend Barbara at 49 Dragonflies. So Barbara, if you're watching, thanks again for this fabric. This had just the perfect color for this background here. As you can see, this effect is like broken somehow, and you can see through this effect what's below. So perhaps you want to have that in mind. Depending on what you choose for your base, the effect can look a little bit different. So if you want to have like some typical grunge, like brown grunge, then choose something for the base that is like brown as well, or like this rusty color would also work really well, I would say. But of course you can do that in any other color that you can imagine. That doesn't have to be brown. If you think, ooh, vintage is not so my cup of tea, or brown is not my cup of tea, then you can also use something else, yeah? Fruit tea, for example. I mean, cup of tea, you know, doesn't have to be black tea, which is brown. Yeah, funny joke, Luise. What I'm trying to say is, please use the colors that you like for your project. So today we are going to make some mini cards. And for that, I want to choose some images from two different printables, which you can find in my Etsy shop. But you can basically use any image that you can imagine. That doesn't have to be a digital paper. That can also be like, for example, a photo or a cutout from a magazine or a book or whatever you have laying around. So let me quickly tell you what this is and where you can find it. So these are my vintage photo strips. This is a pack of a ton, I think a total of 200, if I'm correct, photos in a really vintage style. And you get a ton of characters here, different people. And you can cut them separately and use them as like these square photos. You could also cut little pairs like this one here in a horizontal or vertical way. You can also, and that's also why they are called vintage photo strips, cut such strips. That was difficult. In also vertical or horizontally. Vertically or horizontally, do you know what I mean? Yeah, you can decide for the direction how you want to cut them. So these are authentic vintage photos, and you get several different sheets in that set. so that you can also choose like the shades of the colors that you need for your project. As you can see, there are some that are nearly black and white, some have these sepia colors, and some are more like yellowish. And the other thing that I have here on my desk are my Santa Claus strips. These strips are also part of my Santa Claus bundle. So I will link everything down below for you. And as you can see, the construction of this printable is like the same like this, so that you could also, of course, mix and match these if you want. Could be nice for some Christmas projects as well, to have some of these like authentic vintage photos. And then this, here you have some like photo style pictures as well, but also some more artsy Santa Claus images, like a little bit distressed already and in a more like watercolory style or artsy style. And there is also a ton of pictures available in this set. So as I said, I will link everything down below for you. And in this set, there are also some images which are not squares, but yeah, here are squares as well, Louise. Like a mix of rectangles and squares, and these little strip rectangles like washi tape. I mean, I did this here too, like, you know, imitate some kind of washi tape. Yeah. So today I want to use the squares of this Santa Claus strip set. I want to show you that you can use this controllable grunge effect on different styles of photos or images. And to be able to compare that better, I'm going to choose the squares so that like the format is the same, and we can compare that better later. Whew. Holy moly. I woke up really early in the morning, and I thought, why don't I turn on my camera and record this video? But at the moment, I'm not so sure if that was a great idea. So if you want to know it exactly, it's 3:45 a.m. here at the moment. And yeah, what else can I say? I mean, that's the explanation for my weird English, perhaps. Perhaps I haven't had enough coffee yet. So I'm going to cut 3 of the Santa Claus images here. So let's see. So I want to make a total of 6 mini cards, so that I have a nice variation. I am going to make these for my stash, so that I have them ready to go when I need them, and when I make a Christmas journal or something like that, then I can just take them out and use them. But of course, you can also take the images that you've already chosen for your journal. Perhaps you already have some images and you don't know which effect you want to put to them. Of course, then please just use what you have laying around. And perhaps you're wondering why I want to control this grunge effect, and why am I making like a separate video about that. And if you look to the you know, through the bottom of the screen where you can see how long the video is, then you might think, what the heck is she doing? And why is grunge such a big topic? For me, it's like I enjoy things that I can't control, especially because that way you can also learn new things. I mean, if I do something and then something that I can't control and can't see in advance happens, I have the chance to grow my skills and to get new ideas as well. because when something happens that you haven't expected, then you can also come up with ideas that you also haven't expected to get, yeah? And, oh no, okay, we are talking about grunge, so this is not so important. Let's turn this into a nice special effect. I'm sorry. And that's what often happens to me, that I think, okay, let's do this or that. And then some mediums are, not controllable. And because of that, something happens that I haven't expected. And because of that, I get the most amazing ideas, and I get results that are, unique, very much my style. But at the same time, I know that I probably can't do that again. Do you know those situations where you think, oh, that was nice, this effect is nice, but I can't reproduce that and do that again because it was so uncontrollable. And especially with grunge, that is like a problem when it comes to liquid mediums. So for example, let's say you have a digital paper or a paper from like a paper pad, that you bought in a store, in a physical store, not digitally, or you have some other papers that you have found somewhere in your trash can or whatever, especially with papers that are soaking relatively much. Grunge is, for me, a problem sometimes because I can't control what's happening, and I can't get this like illusion that it has happened in an uncontrolled way. So, what is grunge? If something is laying around for 100 years somewhere, then the grunge that comes to that piece doesn't happen in a controlled way. It's like going where it wants. But if I try that on a paper or another project, on a spine of a journal or somewhere else, then I can't get that if I take a paintbrush and try to do it, or if I let the thing do what it wants, then I have the problem in the other way around, because then it gets perhaps somewhere where I don't want to have it because it looks not authentic. And especially with liquid mediums, like for example, distress spray stain or oxide spray, or if you have your ink pads or oxide ink pads and you put something to your mat and then add water, any other kind of liquid medium can be a problem. Watercolor, acrylic paint that you've mixed with water, or whatever you have, because when you have that, so I've just spritzed some of that here to my mat, and if you then perhaps add more water, that would be no difference. The problem is the same. And you take a paintbrush and you think, okay, I want to have this here a little bit grungy, but I know that this medium has to spread around to make this effect. Then you perhaps think, okay, let's take some water, make this wet first, so that the medium can go in here and like spread around. But as you can see, it goes where it wants. Even if I would put that to my table and not hold it in the air, then this goes where it wants. And now you can't see that so well because I have added too much water. So let's add a little darker color so that you better can see better what I'm doing here and what I mean. So if I do it like this, then look, it stays here. Here it will get relatively dark. Here there's already some liquid, but if I lift this, then it goes, like in a line there. That can look great, and there's nothing wrong with this. Do that if you like that. But for me, this is like uncontrollable. It looks not so naturally aged. even if, of course, this can be something that is great for some projects. Yeah, I don't say that I won't do this at all, but not for what I have in my mind at the moment. And the other problem is, I mean, this was wet. I have spritzed some water here before I added the spray stain. If you do that on dry paper, I would say you have an even more extreme problem, because how to paint this to get a really authentic look. I mean, this is like kindergarten, isn't it? It's really, really weird. And especially with digital files like this digital ephemera pack, for example, and matte photo paper, you would have the problem that when you use distress spray stains or distress oxide spray, that the color bleeds in a really, really uncontrollable color. So sometimes, especially with the oxide sprays, I will show you that with frayed burlap, on photo paper, it gets this really, in my eyes, magical, but sometimes crazy effect. And if you think, okay, I know how frayed burlap looks normally on like normal paper, watercolor cardstock or something else, and you have photo paper then, and you take that color and you put it here, then you will notice relatively quickly that the color is going to bleed in a really extreme way. It's even more extreme with other colors. For example, Uncharted Mariner, which is a really like turquoise-ish petrol blue, bleeds pink on photo paper. If you put that on photo paper, then you get like really pink, bleedings. And that is not what I want to have if I want to control what I'm doing. And as you can see here, the color here is changing a lot. And also here it starts to get really, really weird colors. And if you dry this, you can stop that a little bit, but it will happen anyway. And it can also happen, and that happens so often to me, that you dry it and you think, okay, that's my color. And the next day you look to it and the photo paper has made some really weird things. So let me quickly dry that so that you can see what the photo paper is doing here. I mean, please remember, we've used frayed burlap, but this is not frayed burlap. And that's because of the photo paper. And the more the paper soaks the medium, I would say the bigger is the problem with this bleeding in colors that we don't want. I love this effect. I know that it happens and I really love it, yeah? So, I mean, I'm the biggest Ranger fan in the universe, yeah? I wouldn't show you this and I wouldn't use this if I wouldn't love it, yeah? I'm really, really, really a big fan of these mediums and I love that they do this. But for some things, we don't want that. So what can we do then? So let's make 6 mini cards out of these photos here, and these are not photos, these Santa Claus images, and some other materials, and let's add this effect that you've seen on the spine of my Ideology Christmas journal. So I have prepared some things here. So this is just some black watercolor paper. You could use any other, like a little heavier paper if you want to make cards, or for other ephemera that would also work. Of course, what happened here? I think I forgot to close my glue yesterday evening. I would suggest to use something that is a little bit heavier than like copy paper. Yeah, so this is watercolor paper and this is relatively flimsy, but with this it gets sturdy. You could use really thin paper as well, but please have in mind that then probably your paper will get a little like wavy and wonky, and it will not stay so flat, and that is something that you perhaps don't want for cards, even if we talk about grunge. I mean, that is like personal preference, what you prefer for your projects, but just that you know what I'm using here. And I want to add some additional texture with my sewing machine in a second. So that's the reason why I'm just putting a tiny amount of glue here to the middle of this, so that I then can add my images here, go to my sewing machine, and I can immediately sew after I have glued this without the danger of getting the needle into my wet glue, so I don't have to wait until this is dry. You could also use a glue stick for this, of course. Why is this so wonky? What is this doing? Holy moly. And I'm just doing this to hold this together. If you are really, like, you know, skilled, is that a word? On your sewing machine, then you could even sew this together without gluing it. I'm just doing that it holds together, and that I have an easier job on my sewing machine in a second. And you don't have to sew at all, yeah? If you don't have a sewing machine, just glue the pieces together, or you could of course also use a single piece. You don't need these layers, but if you use only like a single image, one layer of paper, make sure that it's a little sturdier, or that you back it with something a little sturdier, so that it stays relatively flat, because we are going to add a lot of wet mediums later, and yeah, perhaps you don't want like these waves in your image. As you can see, I have chosen this black base as the biggest layer, and then I went just a little smaller. I've just eyeballed that with this brown layer, so that then this photo in the middle is the smallest image. I like this, but you can of course vary that. You could also vary the colors here, but please have in mind that those colors that you choose for the layers will be shown partially, a portion of that. What is the word for that? A portion of the colors will be shown in the end. We will see through the grunge effect what is below. The same like, oh God, that is far away. The same like here, yeah, you can see here's the medium, and these areas in between are visible. So if you would choose a blue base here, then you would see blue through this effect later. Have that in mind. If you don't want to have blue, choose another color for the base. So I'm going to sew these together so that we then can go on. So here we go. I'm back from my sewing machine, and pausing the video to go to the sewing machine is always a good chance to get another coffee. I've put also some cinnamon syrup in here, so perhaps that helps with speaking. I mean, it's still relatively early here, so I will try my best. So you could distress or ink the layers of this, but it's not necessarily important for this technique. I just thought, while my coffee was like in the make, that you could wonder if when we talk about grunge, why I don't distress or ink the edges. So I just wanted to mention that it's not necessarily important for this technique, but of course you could do that. You could, for example, take your scissors or one of these like distressing tools, paper distresser, I think that's the right word, and you could go around here and just roughen the edges a little bit. If you have very sharp scissors, like for example from Tonic Studios or something similar, I mean, sharp-wise, I think that's not a word, then please make sure that you don't cut yourself. Make sure that you don't touch the blade here. You could do it like this, but it's not necessary for this technique. You could also take a finger sponge or something similar and ink the edges of the single layers, but in a few minutes you will see that you won't see so much of that. So I save my time and, you know, my medium, and I don't do that because we will not see it so much. If you do that inking, for example, very extremely, and your layers that you want to add here are relatively translucent and light, then you could see that, but I prefer this like really intense kind of grunge, so that I skip the step of inking and distressing, because I won't see it in the end. I've also left the threads of my sewing relatively long so that I can use this stuff either for creating more texture later, or I could use this later to add some beads or something else. I mean, cutting this off later if you don't need it is not the problem, but making it longer if you have cut it off now would be a problem. So, and if you don't have a sewing machine, that's no problem. As I said, you could also glue the layers together just with glue. If you want to have additional texture with the threads, then you could also take a sewing yarn just from a spool and take a little bit off and just add it here without sewing. Yeah, that would also be a possibility. So the next thing that we are going to need, let's start with this one here, are some pieces of something that is similar to tea bags. So I have used tea bags, but you can use a similar material, of course, as well. If you have black tea, then you can get something like a brownish grungy color only from the tea. I mean, from the tea itself, you could use this material exactly like it is here. If you have some fruit tea, it can happen that it turns out a little bit pink. I think my camera can't even show that. It's relatively, subtle, but it's pink. If you want to avoid that, don't take red fruit tea or something, but take black tea. But if you want to do it exactly like I am doing it now, then the color of your tea bag really doesn't matter, because we are going to add some brown mediums later so that everything will be covered up. If you don't have tea bags because you don't drink tea, then you could also use a similar material, like for example thin collage paper, or layers from napkins, either white napkins, then you would have several white layers from one napkin if you take those layers apart. You could also take patterned napkins and just remove the patterned layer, and then you get these white layers. I think you know that you can take a napkin apart. You could use that material, or I don't know how that is in your area, but if I buy shoes, for example, then sometimes in the box there's this really flimsy, but at the same time, relatively like sturdy material where the shoes are wrapped in. That would also be possible. It's nice when the paper is a little bit translucent, but it's not necessarily important that it is translucent. You can get, I would say, nicer effects if it is translucent, but you can take an opaque material as well. The material should not tear if you do something like this carefully. I mean, if I do this really aggressively, then of course it tears. It should be a little bit sturdy, but it should be possible to tear it when it gets wet. So that are the two features that your material should have, no matter if you use tea bags or something else. I have prepared something to save some time. So I have taken this and I've just spritzed some Distress Spray Stain and oxide spray, but just a little oxide spray. Most of this is spray stain in the color Vintage Photo to these. And as you can see, they are already really crumbled because I have taken my tea bags and I've just done it like this so that I get these little like balls. Then I have placed them in a box to be able to spritz them without making my whole desk dirty. And then I've just spritzed my spray stain Vintage Photo all over this. Let that soak in a little bit, and then I have dried that with my heat gun. You could also dry it with the help of the air, yeah, just air dry it. But if you dry it with your heat gun, you get some really nice variations color-wise. Some areas can get really, really dark. Like here, for example, can you see that? This is really, really dark. I mean, if we think that this is Vintage Photo, then you see that it's really dark. And that's not because I've used a ton of medium. It's just because of the heat that I've used to dry these. And when you then open them, you can see this really nice color variation. Don't be confused. This pink is from the tea. And what I wanted to show you so that you can have that in mind is this piece of tea bag. This is also only Vintage Photo spray stain and a little thread from my sewing machine. And look at the color of this. This is a little bit strange, isn't it? Because normally Vintage Photo is like this reddish brown, but it's normally not yellow. But that's exactly the effect that we also had in the beginning here on the photo paper. Both of these are really soaking surfaces, and they are soaking the medium really, really intensely. Is that a word? And because of that, it can happen that the color bleeds in a color that you don't want. So for my project, I don't want to have this yellow. How can you avoid that? I think you can't avoid it. You will get something like this if you use a material like a tea bag. But what you can of course do is take this and spritz a little more Vintage Photo to this to cover that up, and to you can I think it's saturated. It's when, you know, the whole thing is like soaked with the medium. I think that's the right word, isn't it? If you have more on here, then you can avoid to get it yellow again once it's dry. This can look nice. But in this case, for example, especially with this photo, can you see this has this yellow in it as well? And I want to feature the colors of this photo as well in my project. And I don't want to have this like fighting yellow here. This is just fighting with this color. And because of that, I go the safe way and I will not use this as it is. I will use this either for another project where I like this yellow, or I will later on spritz more of my Vintage Photo spray stain to this to avoid this, yeah? So then we are going to take a piece of our tea bag material or whatever you have chosen. Something similar to this would work as well, as I said. And then let's talk about glue. What glue are we going to use to glue this to this? I can't recommend the Tacky Glue by Action. I have tried this. This is a relatively liquid and very, very sticky glue. While it's wet, it's already really sticky. And it's hard to take something like this. And I guess that what you know as school glue or this like normal PVA glue, it's probably the same issue with that. It's possible to glue the tea bag here with, and do the technique with such a glue, but it's nerve-wracking. And there are better solutions. I don't say that this doesn't work. You can basically take any glue that you have, but there are some that make your life harder and there are some that make your life easier. Yeah, so if you would use this and perhaps also mix it with some water, it can work, but it would be not my first choice. The same thing is, this is the bottle of Techie glue. In this bottle is bookbinders glue, yeah, but I've just wanted to show you the bottle of the Techie glue, Bookbinders glue would also not be my first choice, even not if I would mix it with water, because of the same reasons. It's very, very sticky while it's wet, and you would have the problem that the material of the tea bag would stick to your hand, but not to the material, and that is really nerve-wracking, and it's hard to get that down. I thought, and I want to quickly mention that this clear gesso would work, because this is a medium which is not so sticky like, for example, PVA glue, and I thought this will work really, really well. I have bought this new. I haven't had this before. This is really great for preparing surfaces for wet mediums. Absolutely fantastic gesso. But it didn't work. Yesterday, I've already recorded this whole tutorial in German, and I will show you what I got. And I will also show this again to you when we have glued this to this with another medium. But can you see, so that you can compare it, this is still flexible. You can press this down. It's like it's glued. It wouldn't come off. Yeah, I can do it like this. It doesn't come off, but this is like squishy. And that is not what we want. You could do this and it would be okay, but it's not the perfect solution. There's nothing wrong with having something like this, but it's not so perfect, yeah? So let's have this in mind and let's compare this with the result that we will get in a second here. If you have this, please just try it out. Perhaps if you use another material and not a tea bag, perhaps this is the perfect medium. What am I trying to say here? Use the glue that you have and try it out with the glue that you have. Perhaps you have a glue that works for you but doesn't work for me because of the different components that we have here, tea bag, the photo paper, and the other materials. Can happen that you have paper where this works. Yeah. So a better choice in my eyes to glue this down is some kind of collage medium. I have the Ranger Distress Collage medium here. This is just perfect for this. You will see that in a second. Another opportunity would be the Liquitex Matte Gel. And I want to quickly talk about the colors of the Liquitex mediums, because there have been so many questions about that. You have seen me using this for a lot of videos and a lot of techniques, and I really love this medium. This is called Matte Gel, and Liquitex has this red banderole here, or this red rectangle on this container. There are different colors of matte gel. No, I'm so sorry, that is not correct. There are different colors for the different mediums by Liquitex, and there's something really similar to the matte gel, which is called heavy gel medium, I guess, or something like this, something with heavy in the name. And that is something totally different than the matte gel. So if you buy that, for example, on Amazon, be really careful what the description and the picture says. And be really careful that the picture that you see in the item and the description says the same thing. Otherwise, probably the shop who is selling this to you has no knowledge about the different things here, yeah, the different mediums that are available. It happened to me that I bought the heavy gel accidentally because the description said matte gel, but the photo said heavy gel medium, and obviously the shop didn't know about the difference. It's also relatively confusing because these bottles and these containers look the same shape-wise, but please be very careful. Also, the colors here have changed. I guess Liquitex has changed this blue. In the past, this has been really dark blue, and now it's this blue, so it's even more confusing. But please, please, please make sure that you buy what you want to buy and check the description and the picture. So this would work really, really well. And collage medium or something similar would work as well. I'm going to use the Ranger collage medium because it's my favorite for this, but as I said, please just try out what you have and check if what you have works for you. So I'm going to take with my relatively clean finger. Don't do that. Don't take a finger that looks like this and go into your collage medium. It's not a good idea. And I put a little bit of this here, and I'm going to quickly remove this mess here so that I don't mix that up. I mean, that wouldn't be a big deal if your medium would be tinted, but in this case I don't want to have that. I don't want to have it too dark and too intense. So I'm going to take my tea bag and a little bit of collage medium to my finger, and then I'm going to apply this here. And a relatively good let's say indicator for the glue that you use is the following. I found that out for myself. Take your finger, and when you have added a little bit of that, put your finger to the glue and hold it up like so in the air. And if it falls down, the glue is good for this technique. If you put your finger there and you hold it like that and it sticks to your finger, then the glue is probably too sticky for that technique. Because now we are going to place this on here, and I show you different variations how you could do this. So in this step, I'm going to place this all over the whole picture, and as you can see, it immediately soaks the collage medium. It sticks down immediately, but not permanently. You can still, lift this up and say, okay, I want to have more texture here, and then you can shape the tea bag like you want it. But you want to make sure that this whole tea bag is soaked with the collage medium. You don't need much for that, but you want to spread that around so that you get this really well attached. And if you use some glue that is too sticky or something like this, then it can happen that you either have your fingers sticking to the tea bag and that you can't press this down. It with some glues, I'm sorry, for example with the tacky glue, it happens that when you press your finger and you lift the finger up, then the tea bag is on your finger and it comes off from the paper and it stays on your finger but not on the paper. And with this, I had the problem that it didn't stick enough, so that I got these squishy areas here where air or something is here somewhere in the tea bag, and that's not what I want. So when I have this here and when I'm happy with the texture, then I'm going to destroy this. Yes, you've heard right. So I'm going to take either my fingernail, a spatula, the end of a paintbrush or something similar, not your scissors or something like that. You don't want to destroy the whole thing here. You just want to make some holes in here and tear this. that works with a paintbrush, but I prefer to use my fingers because I have the feeling that I can control this a little better then. So for this, I want to tear this open like so that we get this like hole in here. I will show you different variations in a second, but I also want to show you that you can really vary this effect depending on the project that you have. I mean, for my spine, for the Christmas journal, I wanted to have those like single areas in between of those sections that I have there. But of course, if you have an image like this, you want perhaps something like, this nearly looks like a vintage curtain or something like that. And perhaps you don't want to have too much covered. For example, her body here, it would look perhaps a little bit strange if everything would be covered. But of course, you can do it like you want it. I've made this hole so big that I also can see my sewing here, so that I get this additional effect here. And I can also now take my thread that I have here from my sewing machine and just attach this here with a little bit of collage medium so that it sticks there. That is a little bit tricky because this thread also sticks to my fingers. And what you also should have in mind, if you use mediums that are reactivatable, that you can reactivate with water, that you will get something to your fingers on the one hand and to the photo on the other hand. You could hopefully see that the color of this has changed a lot because the spray stain in the tea bag reacts with the collage medium and it gets reactivated, and then you get a little of that to your photo. If you want to avoid that, so we are going to let this dry. If you want to avoid that, for example, here on this Santa Claus image, then just first clean your fingers if you have already something on there, and if your fingers are like, stained, then just clean your fingers and don't put the tea bag all over the whole surface, but decide for the areas where you want to put it. So for example, how do we want to do this? Perhaps like this. I mean, you can do this without thinking, and I can only recommend to do it without thinking. But of course, it's not wrong if you think about how you want to do this. But if you don't want to stain your photo with the spray or medium that you have added to the tea bag before, then just add it carefully to only the areas where you want to have it, for example like this. And what also looks nice then is when you just make some little holes in here so that this looks not so regular, just like this, for example. And let's add a little more there on the top. Perhaps we can make it like this. And how to know, how can I say that? How to know if it's ruining your photo or the image or not, if you get the medium or the color of the medium to your image. I think if you are new to junk journaling or new to grunge or something like that, that could be a problem or something that you want to think about. Here, for example, the original photo was relatively yellow. Here you can still see the original color, and you can see that the spray stain on the photo paper has left this really intense color. Same effect like here. Yeah, it bleeded in this really extreme yellow color. I knew that before I did it. If you are not so familiar with your papers and your mediums and what happens with that in combination, try that out on a small area. Yeah, you can just, I mean, especially with digital paper, a set like this, for example, that would be no problem. You can print that out several times, and if something happens that you don't like, then you can just print it out again. Yeah, if you have a paper where you are not sure how it reacts, just take a small corner and add these layers and the mediums and see what happens, and then you can see if you like it and if you want to have this all over the whole surface and the whole image or not. If you have something like this Santa Claus image, is this enough? I think I want to smear. Oh, that is also something where I can show you exactly what I want to say here. I think I want to smear a little bit of the spray stain over the photo to make a smooth thing here and blend that a little bit. So if I take my finger and go over this, can you see how brown it gets here? That's only from the spray stain and because of the fact that it's reactivating with the liquid thing from the collage medium. Yeah, so you can get the most amazing effects. I really like this. This looks really, really aged now. Perhaps I should zoom in a little bit so that you can see that even better. And of course, you can like think about that before you do this, because you know, the color of the hat, for example, and the jacket of Santa here is red. And you can think about which color have I sprayed to my tea bag. And if that is brown, you know that everything that you have on your picture is going to get brownish as well if you smear it. If you had sprayed blue to your tea bag and here's red and you smear it over that, you will probably get something like purple. So everything that you know about your colors, of course, yeah, you can use your knowledge here and you will know approximately what is happening. I think this is really amazing. This looks really cool. And that's also a cool way to alter those digital images, of course. What I also really like to do is this the perfect picture for that? Probably not. Let's take both of these where the heads are a little bit bigger. You can see Santa's face is relatively small here. You could do what I'm going to do here on this image as well, but I would say that these are better for that. So let's try to make an effect so that it looks like they are looking through a slot or something. So I'm going to place this here, make some texture by crumbling this up. And I've chosen this straight edge on purpose to show you that you can, at nearly any point while this is still wet, the medium, the collage medium, you can change the look of this. You can see this is really straight now, and that looks not very nice. I mean, you could do that, but this is like too straight for me, and it's like not grungy, it's straight. Do you know what I mean? So take your fingernail or something similar and just go in here and manipulate this. Make some holes, just like this. And if you are still not sure which glue you want to grab after you have watched this video, if you want to try this out. Think about the following thing. If I add the collage medium here, you can see it's really easy to tear this and to move it without lifting it up. I don't know the word, schieben, push. Oh, that was easy. I think that's the right word. I can push and pull this with my fingernail without lifting it up, so I won't lose this texture that I have created here when I use my fingernail. If you have a very sticky glue, then it can happen that you pull or push with your fingernail and that you lift up the whole thing, and then you get something like this in the end, which I got by using this. Ooh, I'm sorry, that was close. Yeah. Yesterday evening, I was talking to Barbara at 49 Dragonflies, and she was like, Louise, how is it going with the Ephemeramba? Do you already have some videos? Do you have some results? Can I see something? And I was like, Barbara, don't wreck my nerves. I have to make a video about Controllable Grunge, and that takes its time. And she was like, what is she doing? What the heck? And I was like, I have video footage that is 2 hours long. And then I said, I'm asking myself how it's possible that one can talk 2 hours about grunge. And she was like, you can do that. And then I was like, oh, is that good or is that bad? But I wanted to give you a really detailed tutorial about this. I mean, you wouldn't have fun perhaps if I would do this within 10 minutes and don't explain the details and what's going on in my head, and you would probably miss the fun that you can have with this and the different effects that you could reach with this. Because here, look here, let's take, I mean, this is the perfect example. Let's take additionally a paintbrush which is relatively stiff. Something like this, for example. So probably not something like this. Yeah, this is relatively flexible and flimsy. Take something that is, you know, hard. And look, and this is something, what I want to explain here now is something that you will get in a more intense way on matte photo paper with the Ranger mediums, especially the sprays and the oxide sprays. This can be different. No, not can. It will be different on a different kind of paper and with a different kind of medium. But you can try that, what I'm trying to do here. But with the photo paper, you have a really easy job. Can you see that, I mean, let's take a look at the edge of the tea bag. So the tea bag ends here, right? You can see that. But look at this little sludge here, and this, and this. Here, the spray stain was reactivated by the collage medium, and it goes onto the photo paper. And because of the photo paper, it reacts in this extreme way. So you can use this and try with a paintbrush to rub over, and a little bit of collage medium so that you have a little bit of liquid on your paintbrush. Rub over this edge or anywhere else and try to get some of the spray stain to your paintbrush and smear that here to the photo and blend that, so then that you then get like a shadow effect here as well. This is already relatively dry, so let's try it here. It looks like can get some off from here. Normally, I mean, I have talked a lot now. Normally, if you would do this immediately after applying the tea bag, this would work way better. You could also try to push the tea bag away, because then, and that's something that is probably worth a separate video, if you do that, you get a really great stained effect as well. Look, if you do it like that. I want to have this flat, but yeah, not too extreme. But look, can you see that? Here you see exactly the reaction of the spray stain and the photo paper. And that brings me to, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And that is the magic of Ranger mediums, and especially in combination with photo paper. Holy cow. I'm so sorry, I can't speak anymore. I get an idea now. Oh my goodness. And that is exactly what I said in the beginning. I will let this dry. That is exactly what I said in the beginning. Ranger mediums are just the best. It's just so, let's try this out here. I can't resist. Okay, what's in my head? I'm so sorry. What is in my head? I thought, that is one of those moments that you normally wouldn't see, because this is something that I would try out without the camera, and then I would come and say, I found a cool effect. But now you got the pure reality. So what happened here? We've added the tea bag here, and the tea bag has the spray stain on it, yeah? And with the collage medium, it gets wet and the spray stain gets reactivated. And with the time on here, where the collage medium is still wet so that we can move it, the spray stain reacts with the photo paper, right? That's the reason why we got this extreme orangey schmutz here, after we have taken the tea bag away. That means we could even mask some areas and try to get this effect with the tea bag only in some areas, even more controllable, because here we have it all over the whole surface. But what if we take a stencil, for example, or something similar, and try to get that is this, yeah, come on, let's try this. This is, don't know if that is the perfect stencil, but if not, we will find that out in a second. So how do I have to do this now? I have to make sure that the stencil can't stick to this with the collage medium, otherwise I would probably tear my photo here. So let's place it here like this. Let's then, holy crap, my brain. Let's then take the collage medium. Let's put that on here. Press the stencil down so that we can make sure that, yeah, that I want to make sure that the stencil can't stick to the photo. But now I have to press the tea bag here without gluing it permanently to the stencil. I mean, collage medium is great for that, isn't it? Because, you know, could you take just some spray stain to your finger and put it through here? Yes, I guess you could, but I think it's a big difference if you like massage this out from the tea bag, because I can already see that it gets really yellowish here, like this orangey color, even if it doesn't have so much time to react with the photo paper. And what you like massage out from the tea bag is, I would say, different to using the pure spray stain. So then let's lift this up and let's see if okay, so let's put this into some water to make sure that it can't dry on the stencil, and let's clean that later. So then we have this, and this looks really rusty now, and I'm sure, because I've used vintage photo on photo paper relatively often, I'm talking about this matte photo paper where I printed the printable, and it doesn't react so extremely orange like here. So I guess it's a difference if you like squish it out from the tea bag or if you use it directly. But now we should have the chance to... Holy crap, my brain is working too slowly. How do I have to do that? If I dry this now, the color that we have here shouldn't smear anymore. So that we then could have the chance to add the tea bag on top and then do something similar like here, but get the pattern of the stencil shown. Does that make sense? Perhaps in a second. So this is dry. Let's take the same tea bag. Let's add more collage medium here to be able to glue that down. And now I want to first cover that up to be able to get another shade of the vintage photo to my image. Yeah, so similar to this, so that we have the original color here, this like schmutz here, but the pattern of the stencil also shown after I pull this back. Does that make sense? Hopefully. So let's try to blend this again. Let's take, perhaps I can also take some water to help me doing that. So I go over this, just smear this. It's not enough. Smear this around a little bit. Oh, it's coming. It's coming. So that we have the original color here and a little blending here. Can you see how it starts to get orange here? Can you see this really tiny line? That's what I want to have. And now I'm hoping when I take this back, then can you see that? Oh my goodness, it worked. Holy cow, that is amazing. Can we see that through here as well? Yes, we can. Okay, I think there will come another video with thousands of different stencils and patterns that you can do with this. Oh my goodness. I mean, I have absolutely no idea if you could follow my thoughts and if you can feel my excitement about this. I don't know if it's like as exciting for you as it is for me, but this is, oh my goodness, this is a game changer. That is the best thing of junk journaling, that you can experience those things. Imagine This is all vintage photo, yeah? But imagine we would do that with different colors. Imagine we would use something like, for example, gathered twigs or so, something more neutral in the background, and something that is reacting not so extremely orangey on the photo paper like vintage photo does. And then we would take another color for the tea bag and put that on top. Then we would get not this like matchy effect of this, but an even more, oh, I have to try that out. I can't resist. What do we have here? We have 2 Santas left. And I guess that it's good when the background is light. I think that it won't work on such a dark background like here, but we will try this out now. And we will also try a different stencil, even if I really like this effect with these little lines. That looks so cool. But let's take this here for the, you know, here are like tree, a Christmas tree in the background. Gosh, I'm so excited. Yeah, this is probably, if this is your first video that you watch on this channel, please don't be confused, don't run away, please subscribe. I promise that not every video is like this chaotic. And if you watch for a longer time, and if you know me for a longer time, then thank you very much for your patience. But you already know what is going to happen when those situations are happening. So this stencil, by the way, is called, has the number THS007. This one is THS094. And the other one on this here, quickly take that out from the water, is THS, oh, I can't read it because it's so wet. THS 101, if you want to check those out. So let's think, how can we do that? I want to use this here. Perhaps we can try to make Santa look through these little like trees. So that means we would have to put this like so or like so, but I think I like it better this way. And then we would have to take something, I mean a color that is going to react extremely on this dark background, because the image is of course way darker than here. What could that be? I want to try an oxide spray. I'm going to take frayed burlap. Why? Because I'm hoping that the oxidation is then later on sitting on the photo paper and gets a really intense color, a light color on the dark background. And I think we can try to, I'm going to spritz a little bit of the spray stain here on the right, you can't see it, just to my mat, so that I'm able to take that with my finger. Let's see, so here, here it is. So I'm going to take that with my finger, mix that with a little bit of the collage medium, so that we have a similar effect to what we had before, except the tea bag. Yeah, the tea bag is missing now, but let's see if this works, if we skip the step with the tea bag and just add this mixture here. Of course, you could also, of course, try to spray the spray stain directly through the stencil. That would also work. Perhaps you can do that here on the other side, or additionally, let's see. Because when you use matte photo paper, the oxide spray, the spray stain, oxide ink pad, distress ink pad, everything is going to get waterproof. Yes, if you haven't heard about that before, then you know it now. I found that out, yeah, by accident, you could say. But that only works on matte photo paper. I've tried several different brands. They all worked. If you have printed your printable to such a matte photo paper and you spritz oxide ink or spray stain, or you use your ink pads on this, it gets waterproof, and you can also spritz a ton of water and then stamp. You will get the most amazing results. I will link a playlist down below for you so that you can check that out if you want. I have several different videos about that. So that means that this gets waterproof as well. Even without the collage medium, it gets waterproof on the photo paper. But I want to add, because I can see that this doesn't get lighter. Yeah, I can already see that. Yeah, it's not enough. We can't see it on the dark surface of the photo. So let's take something to cover Santa's face. Let's just, ooh, don't spritz to this. Let's try to get some of the oxidation here. Yeah. I am smearing this around so that I don't get those like straight lines. And then I think I'm going to, but can I leave this here now? I think I can't, because we have collage medium there, and I'm afraid that my stencil will stick to the photo now if I like go away and let that dry. Let's take a little bit of heat so that we can lift it off, but that this pattern doesn't, run away. But don't dry that completely, otherwise you would have your photo sticking to the stencil if you also have used collage medium. Oh, that worked. Oh, okay. Oh, look at that. Oh my goodness. Look at this piece of art here on my glass mat. I want to take a photo now. Exactly of this. This is just amazing. Oh, okay. So now we can of course dry this completely. Could also let it air dry. I mean, look at this. This is also, be careful. This oxide spray is now waterproof, but only on the Santa image. Not here, not here. Yeah. We have mixed that with the collage medium, but since I've sprayed through the stencil after that, I'm assuming that this would smear if I would go over it with my finger. But since we want to add grunge there in a second, that really doesn't matter, because I only want to have these little things here showing later, hoping to get a similar thing like here. I mean, this is a masterpiece. I don't know if we can do something more amazing. So let's let that cool down. And for here, let's do something like this, but with this pattern. So how have we done that? We have taken this and we have put, how have I done that? Oh my goodness. I have put some collage medium through the stencil first, I guess. Like this. Tea bag. More collage medium. Try to get that out there. Oh, there's a massage for the finger as well. And I'm wondering if this will work with all of these little holes in the stencil, but I think that should work because the pattern of this is even thinner. So let's also smear some of that here to the top so that we can get a little like shadow effect or something, a blended effect. Oh, my finger. This is really good for your blood circulation. Okay. It already reacted here. Okay. Let's try to get some of this to the edge here as well. And if I would do this again, and I will definitely do that after I have finished this video, then I would probably, if I want to make like similar cards to these, I would probably take photo paper for all of the layers. Because now, oh my goodness, now you can see, and that is really extremely visible, here on the photo paper, it reacts totally different, of course, than on the watercolor paper layer and this brown like craft paper layer. Can you see that it's totally different? Here you get like an outline around each and every of these little tiny shapes, and here on these areas it's like a little smeared. It's not so clear. It's also not so outlined like here. Yeah. So then let's take this. Oh, first we have to dry this, of course. And I'm just realizing that we haven't even come to the point of adding the next level of grunge. I mean, my original technique that I wanted to show you is different. It's not this. But I'm so hoping that you are amazed by this as well. Oh my goodness. So yeah, let's quickly put this on here to get the even more stained effect from what is still left here in the tea bag from the spray stain. And perhaps we can do it like this and then just pull it to the corner. Yeah. Now I was too impatient. Wait a little longer. Give the paper the chance to react with the spray stain. The effect is not so extremely here, but that's just because I was impatient. It's not so stained there. But you can see that even with like colored images like this extreme red, it looks really cool. And imagine you would use other colors. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's wait a little bit. So that this can react. And then, yeah, look, here it's probably because the image below is lighter there in the corner. The effect is bigger. So let's let this dry and let's see what happens here. I'm not so sure if this will work. And if the oxidation is going to stay there, because we have now the problem. I'm assuming that this is going to smear now because the oxidation is sitting on the collage medium. It doesn't smear. Oh, it doesn't smear here. That is great. Okay, very unexpected. Obviously, the oxide spray and the collage medium got one somehow. That's great. So let's see if we can stain the paper with the tea bag there as well. And if the pattern of these little tree thingies is going to be shown when we remove the tea bag or pull it a little bit. Let's blend this a little bit, just like that. And then let's see. That was not enough time. Let's just leave it for a few more seconds. I mean, what we also could try is when we see it's not reacting so extremely, we could also try, where's mine? Here. Let's just add, what am I doing here? Some vintage photo spray stain to the tea bag, just by, you know, like this, hoping that it soaks through and stains the photo paper a little bit more. Okay. Can you see this here? It's not so extremely visible because the background is so dark, but I think I like that. And the pattern of those little like trees is still visible. Can you see that here? It's still visible. It hasn't bleeded or it wasn't destroyed by adding the tea bag and removing it. And that is a really great thing. I will put a tiny bit of that there to the corner as well, so that we perhaps, how do I want to have this? Get something like that here as well. And with this kind of experiment, I mean, I'm just making my first experiences with this idea, yeah? And you are here live. If I have, I mean, that would be without the camera exactly the same. If I would sit here without you, alone, and I had added more spray stain here with my finger, then I would do it here, of course, as well, so that I can get a similar effect in both corners. And yeah, have this in the same intensity. So let's leave that there for a moment, so that we then can remove that. And what I then will do is I will dry all of these, all of the others as well, and then I will take my scissors and just cut off the this here, which is overlapping. You could, of course, also, when this is still wet, try to tear this, but with the collage medium, can you see? With the collage medium, when that starts to dry, it's relatively hard to tear. You get all of these like flimsy, tiny pieces. I like to cut this just with my scissors after everything is dry, because if I want to have a distressed edge, I can still later take my scissors and go over the dry edge here and get this effect, and I don't have to deal with all of those tiny pieces from the tea bag, because this will tear into really tiny and sticky pieces, of course. But please just do it like you want it. Yeah. And here, that is really cool. Even this craft paper got stained and it doesn't smear anymore. That looks really amazing. But what's even more amazing for me is that this pattern that we got from the stencil is still there. It's not so extreme here on the dark background, as you can see, but I really like that. Look how dimensional that is. Absolutely amazing. Okay. You don't see me, you only see my hands, but if you could see me, you could see a really, really happy Louisa at the moment. I will clean this mess and dry all of, I'm so sorry, dry all of these and then cut off the excess here, and then we can go on with like the grunge technique that I originally wanted to show you. So everything's completely dry now, and I have cut the rest off here, which was too much. It is not necessarily important that everything is completely dry for the next steps, but if you want to cut the tea bags with your scissors, then it's helpful if it's dry, because otherwise it would stick to your scissors and, you know, you would have to clean your scissors later. It's definitely easier to cut if it's completely dry. So now let's come back to what I originally wanted to show you. Perhaps you might wonder how I got this gritty look here on the spine of my Ideology Christmas journal. And you can perhaps also see that it has some glitter on it. So this is something that I have additionally done after I had done this. I mean, except this new technique that we've just found out, yeah? I have glued the tea bags and I have torn them and then let everything dry, and then I went on. But what I'm trying to say is you could, of course, leave these little cards exactly like they are now. If you think I like this effect and this is enough grunge for me, then just leave it as it is. But you can also go a step further and add this gritty look. For that, I have used some grit paste Crypt by Ranger. This is a medium that has really surprised me, and as you can see, I've already used a lot, even if I don't have this in my stash for such a long time. When this paste came out for Halloween, I was like, what is this? Do I really need this? I was a little bit confused by the color, which is in the jar. Of course, it looks totally different when it's dry, but I was like, yeah, okay, it came out. That was probably the reason for my thinking. It came out for Halloween, and I'm not this Halloween crafter, and I thought, okay, if this is meant for Halloween, I don't need it. But once I got it, I mean, look, it's nearly empty, and I've used a lot of this for so many different projects, for so many different techniques. This is not the only technique, of course, I have done with this, and I'm just amazed by this grit paste. It has some tiny black thingies in it, perhaps you can see that, and of course it's gritty. Absolutely amazing. When it's dry and you don't tint it or you don't paint over it, it has this like slimy greenish color that you can see there on the edge of my jar. It unfortunately has dried there a little bit because I don't like to put this like foil over it to seal it, because I use my mediums in like such a short amount of time that I don't need that, and I don't like to have this like flimsy, how do we call that, press and seal foil, or how's that called? I don't like to use that, but when it's dry it gets this greenish slimy color, which makes it of course really nice for Halloween projects, for everything that needs to be like slimy and a little bit grungy and everything like that. But for this effect, it's also really, really cool. I don't say that you can't reach this effect with another paste. Of course, you could use another grit paste, but I will tell you why I like this the best. When you take that out from the jar, now you can't see it. It's like the texture is like a little sticky, wet sand. That's how I can describe it the best. And with that, you have the chance to take it with your finger. You could also use a spatula, of course, and apply this here. And you can blend this really, really well. And I will tell you in a second why I like to do that. So I like to smear that on here, and you can see that I smear it there where the tea bag ends, and I blend it to the outside here. Of course, you can do several different variations. You can experiment with, where you put this, but I like the consistency of this because, can you see when I take my finger and I do it like this movement, then I get it thicker here, and with no effort I can blend it to the outside, and I really like that, especially because we are going to add some ink in a second. Spray stain, to be clear. And with the different thicknesses here, I get not only more interesting texture, but at the same time I can get a mixture of this tea bag look and the paste, so it gets a really like smooth bridge here in between of the paste and the tea bag, and I can smear it relatively thick. It dries completely hard, even with this flimsy material of the tea bag below, because the collage medium made the tea bag sturdy. And then I can, just play around how I want to have this, and I can like sculpture my texture that I have here. And because of this, perhaps you see why, speaking of see, I can't see it. Where is this strange piece from the beginning? Here. This piece, which I glued with this clear gesso by Liquitex, is not so nice for using the grit paste or any other paste on top, because this is so flexible. And if I smear I can do it here as an example. If I smear this here, I can, you can't see it so well, I guess, but this is now moving. Can you see that? It's like the surface below is not sturdy, and that makes it really hard to handle. And when I press this and make this movement with my finger, the grit paste goes where it wants, but not where I want it to have. And this is about controllable grunge. So I need something that is sturdy below my paste. Does that make sense? So for that reason, the collage medium is the better option, I would say. And now I don't let this dry. In the steps before, we have glued all of the tea bags to all of these images, so that you can say it's like a little mask making process. So you can easily glue all of the tea bags to your pieces and then let that dry. But I can recommend to not let the grid paste crypt dry, because then when this is completely dry, this effect gets not so nice, what we are going to do now. So let's decide about the color that we want to add here, because I want to add a little spray stain to this as well. This is orange, really orange, and it's like light coming through this hole. Let's take something darker. Let's go with ground espresso. This is the spray stain. I'm spritzing a little bit to my mat, and then I'm going to take a paintbrush and I'm going to dab this on here. And the cool thing is here now that the spray stain will only go there where my grid paste is. So that means if I touch the grid paste with the spray stain, it will not go to the other areas. It will not bleed into my photo here if I only touch the grid paste with my paintbrush. Now it's a relatively extreme line here. So I'm going to take a little bit of water to my paintbrush and just dip to these areas. And that makes the spray stain soak into the other areas where the grid paste is. And again, my paintbrush is now relatively wet, but if I dip this here, I don't even have to be very careful. It goes only there where the grid paste is and not onto the photo. And that makes this whole thing controllable. So you can now say, I want to have my ground espresso spray stain exactly here, and there you put the grid paste, and then you put the spray stain, and then a little bit of water if you want to spread it a little bit, and this will only go there where the grid paste is. Of course, you have to be a little bit careful that you don't destroy your texture. So take a smooth paintbrush, because remember, the texture paste, I mean this grid paste, is still wet and it's flexible. If I press with my finger, I have a mark there in the paste. So you don't want to press too much with your paintbrush, and you don't want to take a paintbrush which is too hard. Yeah, for example, something like this wouldn't be so good for this technique, because you would leave these marks from the bristles. I'm going to take a little bit more of the ground espresso so that this edge here gets even darker. And as you can see, because of the water that we've added before, it spreads like, naturally. It looks really authentic, I would say, because now you have the area where you want to have the grunge and with the grid paste, and the rest, the spray stain can do its thing. So you can see it stops here. If you would let this air dry, it would probably leave those extreme edges here. So I'm going to add a tiny amount of water so that I can blend this. But here you can hopefully see it stays dark in the middle, and here only where the water is, it gets like faded to the outside. And for the sake of this video, I'm going to leave this part here as it is now, so that you later on can see how it looks when you have the pure grid paste crypt on the tea bag. You can already see that it starts to dry in this greenish color here. Can you see that? That looks really, really cool. So we are going to let this dry. If you have the chance to let that air dry, then I can recommend to let it air dry, because then you won't get those bubbles. When you heat up your texture pastes, that's for all texture pastes, not only for the crypt paste, then it can happen that you get bubbles if you overheat the paste, and that looks not so nice. So we are going to let this dry. And on my Christmas journal, I also had some glitter, so I'm going to show you how I made that effect. I did the same thing with the grit paste. I've first added the grit paste, cribbed, and I'm saying cribbed because, of course, you could also use other grit pastes, but I will tell you in a second why I like this paste the best for this effect. This looks relatively weird here now, but you can also remove this relatively easily, and as you can see, it's like, yeah, it blends really nicely to the background. So let's take, what shall we take here? This whole thing is already relatively dark, isn't it? Let's try to take some oxide spray, hoping that the oxide effect will sit on the grit paste later. I'm going to use frayed burlap. I can't promise that it will work. I have experienced that if you put spray stain on the tea bags, and it can happen that somehow the spray stain is going to soak into the grit paste cribbed. I mean, this is wet, yeah? It's like a wet in wet or wet on wet, how do you say that, technique. And that means if the oxide spray soaks through the grit paste cribbed now, the tea bag gets wet again. Even if we added collage medium, it's like not completely sealed. And I guess that because of that, the vintage photo spray stain soaks into the grit paste a little bit, and sometimes it gets mixed with the oxide spray or ink that you have on top. But I have relatively big hopes for this because this is light at the moment. It's not changing the color. So that looks relatively good. So I'm going to take my heat gun very carefully for the same reasons. I'm sorry. Like I said before, I don't want to get bubbles. And because of that, I'm moving my heat tool and pay very much attention to the paste, so that I can make sure that I don't get any bubbles. But I'm trying to stop the effect here now, because you can see we get the oxidation here, which is sitting on the grit paste cribbed, exactly what I want to have here. And if I wait now and let this air dry completely, it can happen that the spray stain soaks into the grit paste and that it stains my oxide thing here, yeah. Even if oxide normally sits on top of like everything below. But yeah, you can see it here. Now it happens. Yeah, it's not so extreme like you would, like if you would put oxide ink, for example, to an ink background, yeah, then you would see it way more extremely. And here it's relatively subtle, but I like that. This looks really like dirty, grungy snow, and I really like that in combination with this Santa image. And at the same time, you know, it's controllable. It's not like bleeding into the picture. So how to get glitter to your project. Do I want to have this here? No. I want to have that here on those Santa images. So let's do these simultaneously. Of course, there are many options to attach glitter. And it's depending on how much glitter you want to have on your project, I would say, how you do it. I want to have my glitter grungy as well. and I want to have it not extremely sparkly, if that makes sense. And it's also, of course, depending on the glitter itself that you use for this effect. So what am I trying to say here? Please try out the glitter that you have and try out what works the best for you. I'm using the grit paste here to help me to get I can say the right amount of glitter here, and I'm using the grit paste as my glue for the glitter. If you want to have a really glittery project with, you know, clean and really sparkly glitter, this is probably not the right way to do it, because grit paste is not a glue. If you would adhere glitter to, let's say, a card or something, you would probably use some kind of a glue or sticky embossing powder or clear embossing powder. I think you know this trick that you can also adhere glitter with clear embossing powder, and that would make it like really sturdy attached. This way, when I add my glitter here now, it's not so well attached like with, for example, a glue or sticky embossing powder or clear embossing powder, but that's exactly what I want, because I want to have only portions of this with the glitter. For glittering this, I'm going to use rock candy. That's a crystal clear glitter. The normal packaging looks like this little jar, but Ranger has also released this thing here. Absolutely gorgeous, vintage inspired bottle. And if you want to have this, you have to be very fast. I will link it down below for you, because this is a limited edition. So if you are the same amount in love with this label and this thing as I am, then get it. It is really, really amazing. And I mean, I bought 3 of these, and I will probably like only display them in my craft room. I bought them, mainly as a decoration for my craft room, because I think I can't handle to use this up and then it's empty. But the stuff that's in here, the glitter is exactly the same like in this jar, but this is cheaper than buying several of these. I will link that down below for you, that a special bottle. So then let's take, no, we don't do that like so. Can we do that? No, we don't do that. Yeah, but what shall happen? I don't want to get grit paste into my glitter, but that normally that shouldn't happen. Normally I would take a piece of paper and do this, but I think I can risk this. If you want to be totally sure, then please take a piece of paper and let the glitter fall to the paper. And if there's some grit paste, you can remove it from the paper and then put the rest into the jar. But as you can see, it works. And I'm putting the glitter on here, and when I hold this over the jar to get some of that off again, I'm doing this like I would touch a baby, very, very carefully. I don't hammer to this, I don't flick to the back side, because I want to have this grit paste covered in glitter totally at this stage. This looks absolutely weird at the moment, but please wait a little bit. We are going to let that completely dry. I will do it here the same. And with that, the glitter sticks to the grit paste, and I can then later on remove what is too much and what is loose with a dry paintbrush. that is what works the best for me. But if you think I don't like that, or I don't like the technique or whatever, then please just use your favorite method of adhering glitter. There's, I guess, no right or wrong, but for me this works the best. And if you think I want to stain my glitter, you also have the chance to do that. I would recommend to do that now if you want to do it. Yeah, that needs a little bit of like fortune teller skills, because the more often you do this, the more you get those fortune teller skills, because this will not stay exactly like it is here, because here's way too much glitter now. But I want to make sure that a lot of that can stick to the grit paste, and I have a bigger chance when I have more glitter here now. But if you want to stain this, of course you have to like look into the future to be able to know how much spray stain you want to add here now. Yeah, so but you could do that. So we are going to let that dry. And what you also, of course, can try is you can add other colors than brown. I have tried that out more or less successfully. I had a Santa image with a lot of red. Oh, I can show you the result. Here we go. So I made this in the German video. And I couldn't find the right spray stain, or I've also used mica stain spray here to match the jacket and the head of Santa. But that's just because I don't have so many reds in my Ranger Medium collection. I've used Lumberjack Plaid spray stain and oxide spray, and also Tart Cranberry mica stain. And first I tried it with Yuletide, because Yuletide is like the cousin of of Lumberjack Plaid. But that didn't work so well, as you can see here. It looks really, really weird. And as you can see, I added some white splatters, and that was the worst thing I could do, because they turned, of course, pink. We will talk about that in a second as well. I will add some splatters here also, so that you can understand why they turned pink. But what I'm trying to say is you can try different colors and you still have grunge. And I really like that. Grunge doesn't always have to be brown. You can also add other colors. So let's try something here. I don't want to ruin this. Holy moly, why is this here now? I'm afraid. Thinking about crackling campfire at the moment, because that is different, but an orange red thingy as well. And if you have a lot of holes here in your tea bags, then I really like to build those like craters around that. That looks so cool. Like, I mean, if you use brown, especially for example ground espresso or something really dark, then it looks like nearly burnt into the picture, and I really, really like that. So let's add this here, and let's quickly also talk about the alternatives, because perhaps you think, oh, I don't have grit paste crypt, what can I use alternatively? Perhaps you know there are other grit pastes available from Ranger. I can't tell you anything about other brands because I don't know grit pastes from other brands, because I use Ranger. Yeah, I'm a Ranger freak. I can't I can't say that in other words. I'm really addicted to Ranger products. But I'm sure there are other grit pastes out there, and perhaps you have other grit pastes from other brands then please just try them out, yeah? No one says that you have to run to the next craft store and buy this grit paste if you have a jar of grit paste from another brand at home, and perhaps you first want to try that out with what you have before you think, okay, I will try the grit paste script as well. But if we talk about Ranger grit pastes and alternatives to this, then you could try the grit paste opaque or the grit paste translucent. But I will also tell you why I like this for grunge better, especially if you want to have darker areas. Like, for example, here, you can already see this greenish look here. This is only from the grit paste crypt. No oxide ink involved. This chalky look only comes from the paste. And only the crypt paste is doing this, yeah? For you, with no effort. Let's talk about grit paste opaque. What is that? It's a grit paste as well. It's opaque, meaning it's white. It's gritty, yes. And it's a really gorgeous paste. I really like that. But the problem, where is it? Grit paste opaque. I've already put it here. The problem with this paste and this grunge technique is the following. This grit paste and also other white pastes are gesso based. And if you now take, can I please have a clean spatula? If you now take some of this, you can already see that the grit is different to the crypt paste. Looks, yeah, it's another kind of grit. It's gritty as well, but different. That would be not the problem for me, because grit is like, you know, nice for grunge. And if it's like this grit or this grit, that would not bother me too much. But please imagine you take the same stuff like we've added to the grit paste crypt. Let's take ground espresso, which is really dark, and turned out this dark on the crypt paste. Let's take a little bit of that and add that here. I mean, it's the same on my spatula than it would be on my project. Yeah, there's absolutely no difference. Look how light and nearly pastel this is. And if this dries, it gets even lighter. And you can't get like a burnt and really dark effect with this gesso-based paste. That's not possible, because the gesso will always give you this mixture of the spray stain and the white. Yeah, that is like mixing a color with white. That's what you get here. You can add more and more and more and more and more of spray stain, then it would get probably a little darker, but never as dark as this is. If you like this, please just use this paste, yeah? But I'm just telling you why I don't like it for this kind of grunge effect. It's an alternative, yes, but it is doing different things, yeah? So let's then talk about the grit paste translucent. If I can find it. Where is it? It was right in front of my nose. I knew that I had taken it out. So this is the grit paste translucent. It looks like white when it's in the jar, but when it's dry, it's translucent. But the effect you can already see the difference to the opaque grit paste, even if it's still wet. So that's what I'm trying to say. Let's take ground espresso again. And holy crap, how can I get this focused? Let's add this here. First of all, you can see it stays relatively in shape. If I mean, it spreads not so well. If I take some water, I mean, that's nearly the same with the crypt paste as well. You need some water to get it around. But look, this is dark. Yeah, because here's no gesso in the paste. It gets way darker than with the opaque grit paste, because it's not mixing with the white of the gesso. But when this dries, it doesn't look like this anymore, because it gets translucent and the look gets a little different. I would suggest, if you have this grit paste, the translucent one, and you want to try out this grunge effect, then take a little oxide spray first, and after that add the spray stain. Then it's not so translucent anymore. Or take another medium, like for example Distress Paint, to stain this. Then it also gives you not this like translucent look. But yeah, if you, I mean, I don't want to confuse you. If you are new to those mediums, or you are new to those kind of techniques, then it could be that it is a little bit confusing what I'm talking here now. But since you've watched the video until this point, I think that you are interested in doing something like this. And then you are probably also interested in, I don't want to say my opinion, because who am I? It's only my opinion. But I can tell you my opinion after practicing this and after trying out different mediums. And I think if you have never done something like this, it's relatively hard to decide what you want to buy. And if you are a beginner, then you might be confused and you might ask, and I get this question very often, and that's also why I'm including that my answer into this video. You often ask me, Louise, if you would have to buy only one color of Distress inks, which one would it be? If you would start with those paste mediums, which one would you buy? And that question is nearly impossible to answer, because it depends on what you want to do with this. If you want to make a lot of Halloween projects, yeah, and you are really into really like deep grunge and those like creepy projects, then buy this stuff, yeah, buy grit paste crypt, because you already have this like slimy look. You could also add this to how are those stones called on the Friedhof, there where the graves are those stones. If you want to have that look, or you are making fairy miniature things where you need stones and this stone look, then this paste is perfect, because you already have this stone look. If you want to make something that is really light and in pastel colors, and you don't care about this mixing effect with the gesso, then take this. Yeah, so it's depending on what you want to do with it. I mean, my answer, what shall I buy, is depending on what you want to do with it. And that's sometimes not so easy to answer. I can't tell you which colors of Distress ink you should buy in the beginning of junk journaling or in the beginning of working with those mediums, because I don't know what you want to do. I can't tell you buy vintage photo, like those classical colors, like those traditional color. If you don't like brown, then vintage photo doesn't help you. Do you know what I mean? So let's think about different colors which we could add to the crypt paste. And I'm really thinking about Crackling Campfire. It's in this orange family as well, but very different to this. And I just bought these and I haven't tried them out yet, so that's perhaps the perfect opportunity to do that. So let's shake the oxide spray. Why can't I hear the ball? Here we go. And do you remember this red Santa Claus, which I've just shown you? Where is it now? Holy crap, I'm losing my things here today. Do you remember this one? Here you can see some oxide spray of lumberjack plaid. And you can see that that turned out really, really pinkish and chalky somehow. I mean, oxide spray, yeah? We can expect something like that. But I want to try, and I haven't even swatched this. That makes my life very hard. I don't know how this comes out, and I don't want to have it too orange. So I'm going to try to make a little trick. I will add a little bit of the oxide spray first, and then the spray stain on top to see what the crypt paste is going to do with that. Just a tiny amount, so that we can get this, perhaps a little bit of the oxidation. Ooh, that's very orange. But it looks great at the same time. Rusty hinge would perhaps also be an alternative to this. That was already a lot. What do you think? And then I'm going to add the spray stain. And of course, you could also use mica stain sprays to get another kind of, yeah, glittery effect. Let's call it like that. That also sits really nicely on top of the crypt paste. Really like that. I mean, I have used it on this Santa fail just because I wanted to know how it looks. I mean, look, that is really shiny, and I think it's a nice addition and another variation of grunge. Why can't you have glittery grunge? There's nothing wrong with that. So, and if you don't have glitter, yeah, but you have perhaps some mica stains, then you could try that and look if you like it. This is cool. Oh, perhaps here where the crypt paste is on the black paper, we should add the oxide spray. So I have a little bit left so that we can see that better later. Of course, that will show up way better than the spray stain on the black surface, I mean. I think I'm really in love with this. First I thought it's a little too orange. I'm trying to stop this by heating it up carefully. And I'm trying to avoid bubbles, same reason as before. But I have more of the spray stain on the edge of this, perhaps you can see that, and I want to stop this from going into each other. If you heat up your paste too much, it's not a big deal. I mean, you will not ruin your project, but I would recommend to be very, very careful, not only because the paste gets really freaking hot, if you like cook it, then you could burn yourself, so be careful with that, please, if it happens accidentally. But another thing is, if you get these bubbles, then you will get like air into the paste. So it didn't happen here, but imagine that these little things would turn into bubbles. The paste is relatively thick here, and if you heat it up too much, it bubbles. You get like hot air into this, and when that dries, it is like a little bit flexible. It's not so hard, not so sturdy, and it can happen if you are not careful enough that, for example, let's say you do that and you heat this up and you heat it up too much, and then it bubbles and it cools down, but it hasn't dried completely. And you put it then into your journal and you flip the page. Then it can happen that the page will stick to your paste, and when you open the journal again, you have the paste on the other page and your piece is ruined. Yeah, that could happen. So that's the reason why I am really careful with overheating my pastes. I don't say that I don't do that. To be honest, I like to overheat things for some kind of projects. Just thinking about a color for this. But you need to know that you have to wait. And I also like to let those things with the bubbles that I did on purpose dry overnight, so that everything is like really safe before I put that into my journal. I have a really crazy day today. I have the feeling that I want to try crushed olive on this. And this is probably also not finished yet, but let's see. Clean this mess so that we don't get any orange to crushed olive, because I think that is going to get mud then. So let's do it the same like with the crackling campfire on the other piece, because that worked really nice. Meaning I use the oxide spray first, and then I'm going to add the spray stain. Ooh, that was probably a little bit much water on my paintbrush, but you can see, even if you have like too much water, or let's do that on purpose. I'm going to dip my paintbrush into my water, and I don't do this and I don't do this. Yeah, so let's dip it in, and it's really like full with water. Take some of the oxide spray, and now I'm doing this really like aggressively and not careful, but you can see it stays there where the paste is. It can't come to your photo, and that is something I really like. I don't know if someone else has done this before me. I have no idea. Perhaps, I don't know if I found this out or if someone else did this technique. Perhaps you are like bored the whole time because you have seen this for several different times. But I'm a little bit proud that I found this out for myself and for my projects, because this makes life so much easier. And especially if you have spent a lot of time into a project. I mean, look how long this video is, and also think that I have edited this video already when you see it. And I had like drying times in between. I had some breaks in between just to refresh my brain, and you would need that as well. I mean, I hope that I'm not the only person who needs a break. But what I am trying to say is, even if you don't make videos about this, then you probably make some breaks in between, and then it takes a time to finish such a project. And I really like to sit down and enjoy this process, and pay attention to details, to learn more things, to learn more about my mediums, but that also means that I spend a lot of time into those projects. And then when something is like totally uncontrollable, not this like experimentish uncontrollable, but uncontrollable. Do you know what I mean? And frustrating uncontrollable. Then I can't enjoy my process when I have like uncontrollable things. Do you know what I mean? And with this, it's fun. It's especially with other colors and with what we found out here with the stencil. It's still experimenting. It's still playing. It's still growing through playing. But it's controllable as well, and that makes it even more fun because I have the feeling that I know what I'm doing. Yeah, if you absolutely don't know what you are doing, for me that is sometimes a little tricky. I mean, you can find out gorgeous things without knowing what you do as well, but yeah, I like to become a nerd with my things. Does that make sense? So if I see this, I'm absolutely happy. After doing this, I could go this step to say, okay, this extreme color worked perfectly here for me, so I can go with another extreme color to this piece, and I know that I will like this. And that happened. I love this. This looks absolutely fantastic. For me. Doesn't have to be the same for you. You can hate this. You can totally hate this, but perhaps you can make the experience with your own things, that you, experience something like I did here with this, after I had the crackling campfire experience. I want to have some more darker areas, so I'm going to add some more ground espresso spray stain here. And you can see this is, I mean, I have used my heat gun a second ago, so that this is relatively dry. And the spray stain is like, you know, reacting not in the same way like when the paste is wet. That's also the reason why I like to add it while the crypt paste is still wet. But you can see with a little bit of water, you can help this spread around, even if you make some changes after you have dried this. You could also add the water first and then the spray stain. That would also work, or I would say that would work even better than this method. So that this now gets really more contrast, and it's really light here in the middle and dark here. And what you also could do is, if you have something like, I mean, this looks not like a little forest to me with moss, and this hole is in here, and the boy is looking through this hole. And now it looks like it's lighter in the background than it's in the foreground. But of course, you could also put a little shadow to the inside of this here. And I guess also here it would look really, really cool. So let's, and that's the last thing I want to do here, quickly talk about how to do that. I'm going to take a distress crayon. I'm staying in the color palette that I had before, so I'm going to use ground espresso. But if you have used, for example, I mean, I could also use vintage photo here, but because we have vintage photo here as well, yeah, but ground espresso is darker and I want to have a really intense shadow, but please use what you want. I'm using this crayon because it's really easy to use. You could also use something else, of course. But if you have like a damp paintbrush, but probably not this one, Louisa, but the other one, which is a little bit more stiff, then you can easily with a tiny little amount of water, blend this. Also use your finger to do that, to get like a burnt edge, a shadow, or however you want to call this. An alternative to such a paintbrush would also be something like this. I have bought this new because Tim has brought me to the thought that this could be good for me. So let's try that. If we, ooh, oh my goodness. Yeah, okay. If Tim says that is good, then please just believe it, because it's true. Look how smooth this is now. I don't know if you can see that in the camera so well, but in reality, holy, ooh, no, this wasn't dry yet. Oh no, I've lost here my fuck. Okay, so we are going to say goodbye to this little piece. Oh my goodness. And yeah, that's it. This is the magic of this whole thing. Look, another thing that you could try. Can you see this smear, which is way more intense than the crackling campfire color is here? And why is that? Because of the photo paper below, or because it mixed with the translucent parts of whatever is here. But that is great. Look, what a cool addition. I mean, that looks way more interesting than before, even if it was an accident. But that means we can't use this on the other side because the paste and the stuff there is not dry yet. So we have to, I mean, this would work really, really nice and gives you a very smooth kind of shading, but I can't do this here before this is dry. So let's do it differently. I mean, that also works, of course. If you have some areas where you can't go in directly with your crayon, you can also put a little bit to your mat, and then just take a damp paintbrush, go in here carefully. I have to be very careful that I don't ruin my texture here now from the paste. But you could also do this, of course, when this whole stuff is completely dry. Yeah? Just like wait until it's dry, and then you can add your shadow here so that it looks like this moss stuff. I say moss because it reminds me to that. Is in the foreground, and there's not like extreme light in the background, but this has a little shadow. You could use a Stabilo oil pen for this effect as well. I think this is already enough for me, but just because this is so orange here and I really like this, I don't want to get the like attention away from this. I want to leave this exactly like it is. Okay, so then when we have that, we can let that dry and be happy. And then let's quickly take the glittered pieces. It would definitely be better to let this dry overnight, but I want to show you what I'm going to do when it's dry. So I will do this way more carefully now, like I would do it normally, because I know that this is like dry but not completely dry. I'm going to take a dry paintbrush and then I brush over this. And as I said, if this is completely dry, you don't have to do that so carefully like I do it here. But I want to show you what happens then. The glitter that is too much falls off, and the rest stays there. And that gives, for me, the right amount of rock candy on this piece. So here you can see where I already removed what was loose. And here you can see how it looked before, so that you can directly compare that. And here it's like way too much. and here it's the right amount. But the easiest way for me to reach that is just put everything here, like, you know, like too much on purpose. And then what sticks here, just with the paste, I mean, this won't come off anymore. Yeah, this is now attached because it sticks to the paste. But this is just the right amount of what I want to have here. As I said, you could also, of course, use sticky embossing powder or any other kind of adhesive to adhere the glitter. But why shall I use another adhesive when I can use my crypt paste to do the job for me? Can you see? Still grunge, but with glitter. I really like this combination. And if you are wondering why I'm doing this over a paper towel and not over the jar, you can already see here the reason. If you have mediums like this crypt paste, of course it can happen, even if everything is completely dry, that accidentally something is coming off. That can be a little like nose that is standing here, yeah, a little nose from the paste, which is too small to hold to your project, and then it can happen that it falls off. And I don't want to contaminate my glitter container, so I'm doing it here over a paper towel. I'm so in love. This is just so amazing. And this, of course, I will not put back into my glitter jar, sondern, but I will put that into my trash can. You could also put that into like a party jar. Some people have those party jars with a crazy mixture of glitter or embossing powder or embossing glaze or whatever, and use that for some crazy projects. But in this case, you know, I just wanted to get rid of that. So then the very last thing that I want to talk about is what happens if you want to add some splatters to those things here. And that is also something where you can, or where I think it's good if you grow your skills as a fortune teller for your mediums. We know that we have grit paste on our project. Grit paste is gritty. If you splatter, for example, acrylic paint or gesso mixed with water to a gritty surface, what happens then? Pink Santa, come back to me, please. Then it happens that the splatters are getting these little like ice crystal thingies. They are not round anymore if they touch this gritty surface. Have that in mind. If you don't know what I'm talking about, let's compare two of these dots. I'm sorry, I told you in the beginning that this is a really detailed tutorial. And that's what's going on in my mind. And that are those like details and differences that matter to me and that can really wreck my nerves if I get something like this. Here I did it on purpose to show my German community what happens, and now you can see it here as well. So I would probably not do this in reality without the video. Look at this little dot, which is on the left next to my paintbrush here. This is completely round. It's a really nice, perfect white splatter. Then compare that with, for example, this one here. Can you see how imperfect and ugly and shitty this looks? I hate those splatters. This is like so fuzzy. It's not sharp on the edges. I don't like that. But my fortune teller skills that I got over the past years tell me that if I splatter to a gritty surface like this, or if I splatter to a tea bag material, which is like very soaking, then that happens. You can't do anything against that, except if you would seal the whole surface, yeah, with something. But that would change the whole look of this. I wouldn't do that. So you have two possibilities. The first possibility is to live with what happens then. And the second possibility is put your splatters there where no grit paste and no tea bag is. Or no sealed tea bag. The most of these areas where we have only the tea bag, there's the tea bag sealed with the collage medium, and that's like, you know, then it's possible to splatter it there. But if you would have like a pure tea bag, which has no collage medium on top, then that would be not so good. I mean, then you would get these like crystal shaped, ice crystal shaped splatters. Another thing that you should have in mind is we have used spray stain and oxide spray here. And if you use acrylic paint or white gesso mixed with water, you would have the same effect like we've talked about with the grit paste opaque, gesso based. Gesso with water, gesso based, it's gesso. Acrylic paint, same thing. This white stuff soaks the spray stain and the oxide spray. Meaning, my fortune teller skills tell me when I now splatter here, my splatters get not totally round because they touch the grit paste, and my splatters, which are here on the outside where the spray stain is, will probably get brownish. The splatters that I have here on my photo paper, remember, we have ink on the photo paper as well. It's the same medium like here, but on the photo paper it got waterproof because of this magic effect of the photo paper, meaning the splatters here on the photo itself will stay exactly like they are here, meaning white. These will get brownish, and you can already see the difference. Here they are totally clean and white, and here they are like stained and not round anymore. But if we leave this here now or dry it with the heat gun, then you get a really cool effect, because this gets then subtle here on the outside. You still have this like interesting thing from the white splatters, and the white in the inside here, where the main thing is, where the focal point is, there it stays white. Perfect, isn't it? Here, I want to try to splatter only to center and not to the grit paste there, and I don't want to splatter to his eyes, so let's do it like this to get a really extreme snowy effect, but in a way that the splatters stay completely white. And why are they doing that? Again, because we have the photo paper, and even if here's some ink which we've smeared, the splatters stay white because the ink on the photo paper gets waterproof. Where are my tweezers? Don't know. Let's do it like this. And grunge and snow. Isn't this just amazing? I mean, what the heck? This is so cool. And this greenish effect from the grit paste. Oh, wonderful. So cool. Okay, so I will add some more splatters to these and then I will let them dry, and then I will show you the end result. If you are still here, congratulations. You made it through this really long video. I'm really proud of you because I know that such detailed tutorials can be, yeah, perhaps confusing. That's perhaps also because of my weird English. And it can be overwhelming as well if you have never done something like this before. But I thank you very much for your patience. And I also want to mention that this doesn't take so long if you don't talk while you are doing this. Of course, when I do a video like this, it takes me a while to explain everything, hoping that you can reach these effects by yourself with the help of this tutorial. But imagine you would sit there and just do this without the need of explaining it. Then it of course goes way faster than what we did here. Yeah, I mean, this video is really long and the time is a lot for 6 of those tiny cards. I know that. But you could do a whole ton of these if you just do it without the need of talking. And you could also do this on several different days in steps. There's no need to do everything at the same time. You could also first, I mean, let's say one afternoon, you cut all of your layers here and glue them together or sew them together. Finished. Next day, you could stain your tea bags. Finished. Next day, you could glue the tea bags. Finished. And on the next day, you could add your paste, your glitter, your stain spray, or whatever you want to use to get the colors here, and then let that dry, for example, overnight. I mean, nothing would happen. And then on the next day, you could add your splatters so that you can do a whole bunch of these for your stash and then use them in your journals later. You could take such little cards just as cards. Of course, you could write on the back and, for example, take them as a gift for a crafty friend or for whoever. You could also turn these very easily into pockets or tuck spots. That's also the reason why I have chosen this relatively sturdy base. If your cards are not so sturdy, you could also, of course, always back them with something else. If you decide later, I want to have a really sturdy pocket or a belly band or something else, then you could still put something behind and turn that into something else. That, I mean, this squared size and this format doesn't mean that it has to stay like this. If you want to have those smaller pockets, I mean, in this size, you could just glue it here and here and here. Then you have a pocket which you can fill from here. Or you could do it turn it into a side-loaded pocket. You could also turn it into a tuck spot just by gluing it only here and here. And then you could tuck something behind. And you can, yeah, basically also include this into any collage that you have, so that you already have a nice focal point for a collage ready to go. I will clean up the mess on my desk here. You won't believe how it looks here. And I wish you very much fun trying this out. And I'm really happy if I read some comments about this. Please let me know what you think about this and if this was helpful. If you have any questions, please also let me know in the comments. I will try my best to answer them as soon as possible. And I hope we will see the next time with another creative idea. Bye bye.